21.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but at that particular event, what happens with the vehicle?
The vehicle goes out of park.
Okay. And then the next line below that, what's the time on that, the date time on that?
9:43 and 59 seconds, June 7th, 2021. That's PM.
Okay. And what happens with the vehicle?
It goes back into park.
Okay. And so roughly how much time passed between those two events?
It looks like just under a minute.
Okay. And you can't tell us whether the vehicle actually moved during that time, correct?
No.
All right. All you can tell us was it was out of park for a little under a minute.
Yes.
All right, and not to put you on the spot, we'll go back up and look real quick. So that's at 9:43:05 p.m., correct?
Correct.
Let's go back and look at the previous vehicle parked at 9:22:45 p.m., and that's line 1904. That's when the vehicle had been placed in the park, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and let's just do some rough math. Do you have a pen? You can write it down if you need to. 9:22:45, the vehicle's in park.
Okay.
9:43:05, the vehicle is now back out of park, correct?
That's correct.
Roughly how much time passes between those two events?
Approximately 21 minutes.
All right, and so the vehicle is out of park for about a minute at lines 3061 and 3079. And then let's scroll down to line 3096 and 3310. What happens with the vehicle there?
The vehicle goes out of park
Okay, at what time?
at 9:44:54 seconds on June 7th, 2021. That's PM.
Okay, and then the next event below that, what occurs there?
Next event, the vehicle goes back into park at, that would be 10 o'clock and 36 seconds
Okay,
on June 7th, 2021 PM.
and those are color-coded green because they kind of represent a matching pair, correct?
That's correct.
Of when it went out and when it went back into park, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and roughly, how much time passes between those two events at 9:44 and 10 o'clock of the night of June 7th?
Approximately 16 minutes.
Okay. All right, and then let's go down to lines 3327 and 3328. And those are two more green colored events that represent that matching pair, correct?
That's correct.
Vehicle out of park and the vehicle in park, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and what are the times associated with those two events?
The vehicle goes out of park at 10:01 and 17 seconds on June 7th, 2021. It's PM. And it goes back into park at 10:01, 29 seconds on June 7th, 2021
Okay.
PM.
And roughly speaking, how many seconds is that?
About 12 seconds.
Okay. Okay, let's go to just a few seconds later, lines 3336 and 3340. And we see another matching pair of these green messages, correct?
That's correct.
Out of park and then back into park, correct?
That's correct.
And what are the two times on that particular event?
The vehicle goes out of park at 10:01 and 30 seconds on June 7th, 2021. That's PM. And it goes back into park at 10:01 and 43 seconds, June 7th.
So maybe I can do the math this time. That's roughly about 13 seconds it's out of park.
That's correct.
Okay, and we see a whole bunch of messages again, that group of messages starting at 22:04:44 and kind of going on until 10:04:44 p.m. and 10:04:47 p.m. We see another group of messages. What does that group of messages generally indicate to you in the aggregate? And that's this group I'll highlight.
Okay. 3 to 2, didn't run false. It looks like the system is powering down.
Okay. Okay, and then we get down to lines 34, 64, and that shows another green color-coded pair of messages, correct?
That's correct.
And again, goes out of park and back into park, correct?
That's correct.
And what are the two times associated with those two messages at 36, 64 and 36, 82?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what
What's
are
the
those
question?
times?
What are the times? 10:04 and 49, it goes out of park. That's PM on June 7th, 2021. And it goes back into park at 10:05, 55 seconds PM, June 7th, 2021.
And that's roughly more than a minute, correct?
That's correct.
And then let's go down to lines 3490 and 3504. And we see another matching pair in out of park and then into park, correct?
That's correct.
And what are the times associated with those two?
The vehicle goes out of park at 10:11 and 45 seconds on June 7th, 2021 PM. And then it goes back into park at 10:12 and 38 seconds PM, June 7th, 2021.
Okay. All right. And that's roughly just under a minute or so?
That's correct.
And we're almost to the end here. Okay. And then we see another message. So first of all, we see some messages that are blue colored at 3506 through 3515. And why are those blue coded instead of green coded for you?
Those are more vehicle park messages, but they appear to be with the, basically duplications of the existing ones.
So that's just duplicate information, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And then finally, at line 3521, we see the vehicle. What happens with the vehicle at that line?
Okay, it goes out of park at 10:13 and 39 seconds PM on June 7th, 2021.
Did you find a matching kind of pair as we've talked about for when the vehicle goes back in the park?
No. No log message was present for that.
Okay. Can you explain why that log message may not be present?
We found during the testing of our test vehicle that there are times when the system decides to temporarily stop recording message. The reason is not clear.
Okay. But you do see it come out of park at 10:13:39, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now, and just to reiterate this, you're just telling us when this vehicle's in and out of park, correct?
That's correct.
Because that's the most reliable piece of information you've been able to deem from this data, correct?
That's correct.
And you can't tell us necessarily where the vehicle's moving, correct?
That's correct.
And you can't tell us if it's moving, or if you see it go out of park, who's shifting the actual gear knob, can you?
No, we don't know who's in the car.
And all you can look at is this particular data, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And just so it's clear, you've determined, you're interpreting this data because you used a test vehicle to see when you see these messages, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And that's why you're giving us these opinions today, correct? From
That's
your
correct.
testing. All right. And when you were using your test vehicle, if you took a vehicle, if you took the vehicle out and drove it, took it out of park, drove it, and then put it back into park, would you find that exact same matching pair of in and out of park messages we just talked about? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you weren't able to determine any other data that would reliably tell you if it was moving or not, correct?
That's correct.
All right. But, so if the vehicle's driving and you see that you would see that in end of compare messages like we just talked about.
Yes.
And however, if the car is just stopped and someone shifts it out of park and just sits there with their foot on the brake, and then sometime later puts it back into park, would you see that same matching pair of in park, out of park message and back into park message?
Yes.
You would, okay. All right. Not for mistake, this witness.
By the defense. Stand for a moment. All right, back in order.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Hopefully this won't take long, just a few clarifying questions. First, you mentioned that the data was encrypted.
Yes, when we pulled the data off the chip, it was encrypted.
Is this something that's the manufacturer did?
Yes.
It's not something that the end user doesn't do something to encrypt the data. It comes that way.
Not for an infotainment system, no.
And so it sounded like you kind of had to reverse engineer with a test vehicle to figure out the meaning of stuff. Were you not able to get General Motors to assist with that?
We could, but we generally try to find the data on our own. Often we have it's difficult for us to get the manufacturers to work with us on that data.
Did anyone attempt to reach out to General Motors, say to de-encrypt the data?
Not from EDAU.
I won't go over this spreadsheet too much. You still have the exhibit with you?
I have a copy.
Okay. And we didn't have a.
We do. Laptop, yes.
Is it up?
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you just briefly about, if I can find it on this. There were some things that were happening at 903, 2103. Let me do it. I've got my phone on that. 904. I didn't quite understand. What do these mean? This group of things that say info state, sleep, and state, some abbreviation, animate, all these things happening in this 904, 905 range. What does that mean?
So as I was attempting to explain before that some of these messages, like individually, they don't mean a whole lot. Like, what does this actually mean? But in this case, it's generally showing, like, could you scroll down just a little bit more so I could see a few more of the messages? So it looks like initially, like at line number 984, where the system initially boots up, and then at 904.
Well, let me stop you there.
I'm
When
sorry.
you say system startup, what does that mean? What is the system and what is it doing when it starts up?
So this is just the computer for the infotainment center. This is not the entire vehicle, but something woke up that system. And just like your home computer, it needs to boot up before Windows is ready. That's a similar thing that has a boot up sequence. This is a log that says that was initiated.
Okay. And what would trigger this? What would make this startup happen?
We know that some events that make it happen, such as opening the door or just starting the car, we don't know all the events that might make that happen.
Well, on my Chevy, if you walk near it with the key fob, the lights come on the little door handles. You can stick your foot under the rear and the rear will come up. Would walking near it with the key fob trigger anything?
It's a possibility, but we did not investigate that.
But scrolling down here to 906 and 48 seconds, am I reading this correctly to say that the engine was turned on?
Can you scroll down just a little bit further? Keep going just a little bit more into the 49-second. So if you see that there was at one point, there was messages such engine run false, which is only within the same second as a following up on engine running true. It's messages like this that get a little bit confusing on there, but ultimately it's basically saying, here I'm at, but I'm moving to this state here. So in that case, it looked like the engine started running at this time.
Okay. Well, I don't think I'll belabor this spreadsheet anymore, but I did want to ask, did you additionally retrieve data related to the phone connecting to the entertainment system? I think there was a 911 call that you...
We had a call log that was extracted, as well as the connection of a Bluetooth or several Bluetooth devices.
I'm going to hand you a printout. Is this a printout of device connection history that you were able to obtain from the vehicle?
We need to go back to the original material and take a look at this because some of this looks more than like what we originally collected. So there's pages of this here.
Right, it goes back way outside of the sort of time frame, but that's... I mean, can you identify this?
I mean, the format looks familiar, but it looks, I might have to go back into the original material and pull up the HTML report. Is that acceptable?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, I think the witness is asking to look at his original data to validate what Mr. Barber has. State has no objection to that. Well, we'll just need a few minutes for him to validate it.
No objection, Your Honor. Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have you go to the jury room for a short break, hopefully.
guy. Maybe he's just a bad guy. Maybe he murdered them because he's just a bad guy. And that's something that our system tries very hard not to have happen. But it is very dangerous as a judge when you're presented with this other bad act evidence to know exactly where to draw that line. I might have been a little bit more restrictive, but I certainly think that some of this is very probative and relevant.
Yeah, and I think, and I was looking at the order again that they put out, and only read one of the lines here that references exactly what the court found. The court finds that the activities and conduct of the defendant on or about June 7, 2021, day of the murders, is admissible under res gestae, which of course means kind of the gestation of the crime, the guts of the crime. But I know there's been a lot of financial information that's come in that didn't have anything to do with that date, Nima.
Well, yeah, it's a potential appellate issue. And when you're a prosecutor, there's a couple ways to do it. If you think you can win the case straight up and not deal with an appellate issue, and we know that this is going to be a big issue on appeal, you play it straight up. But I think what the prosecution is thinking here is they may get defense. This is the type of case that may result in an acquittal. Really, what kind of evidence do we have? We got some gunpowder residue, some ballistics evidence. We have maybe Alex Murdaugh lying about where he was at the time of the murder. His alibi might not check out. But other than that, you don't have a whole lot. So you got to dirty him up and make sure the jurors don't like him. Now, again, I know that's not, you don't want them to convict based on character or propensity evidence. That certainly doesn't come in, but you got to have some sort of story. And that's why the prosecution is throwing everything they can at this case, because it's a very difficult circumstantial case.
Yeah, and as we move through the prosecution's case, week 3, I'm still, as the 13th juror, everybody watching this is putting themselves in that box. I don't know. I don't know that I've seen it. The biggest problem I have, Paul, is suggesting that I've been found out. My financial shenanigans are exposed. I'm going to kill my wife and son? I mean, I'll kill the people maybe that, I'm just kidding. I would kill the people that exposed it or that might come back against me for retribution. I just don't. The connect is just not there for me, Paul.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something that I think the prosecution is really going to have to spend some time to fully develop for the jury. We heard from kind of the chief financial officer of the firm who kind of finds out about this, and she's not the one Murdaugh goes after. And the partners and the associate who talk about, his practice, they're not the ones he goes after. There's no indication, at least that I've seen, that his wife or son had any knowledge of any wrongdoing on his part. So the idea that the financial crimes would lead him to murder his wife and his son is going to be a question that's going to roll around in these jurors' minds. Where is that connection? How does the financial crime tie into the murder? What is the link between those two seemingly separate events? The financial crimes certainly do muddy him up. They make him look bad. I completely agree with Nima that that's why this is kind of a main thrust of the prosecution's case. But at some point, they are going to have to say, and this is why it matters.
I'm guessing there's going to be a shrink involved somewhere that's going to help us understand that connection. Okay, Nima, let me ask you this. There was a bomb threat there at the courthouse this morning, 2 hours, 43 minutes to get it all cleared up, find out that it was apparently a hoax. So who's going to do that? Who's motivated to do that? Is it somebody who's also been accused of hiring or asking a relative to kill himself so his kids can get the money? Is it a guy that's willing to kill his wife and son to cover up financial crimes? Is that the same kind of person who would phone in a bomb threat?
It's all connected. It's someone actually really who wanted to get a seat in the gallery for the Alex Murdaugh trial, probably the biggest trial maybe in South Carolina history. So we know that it's a packed gallery there, and people want to get in there. But kind of in all seriousness, going back to what you and Paul were saying, Michael, it is a legal and logical leap for the jurors to find that, hey, someone is a Tom Girardi type stealing from their clients, and all of a sudden he's going to kill his wife and son, who by all accounts there were no issues. Now it's interesting with how Judge Newman ruled. He said that when the defense argued that, his son was the apple of his eye and he loved his wife and that there were no issues, that opened the door. It kind of kicked it wide open for the prosecution to bring in all this evidence of financial crimes. So even the judge was, I think, looking for some reason. I don't know if that was a really good reason to allow all this financial evidence in, but apparently, at least for the court, it was.
Yeah, I think the line was something like, can you imagine any reason that he would have killed his wife and son? Well, that's pretty broad. How about the money thing? And that's what he hung his hat on. Very interesting. Okay, they are going to come back from a break here in just in a second. Apparently, the witness is looking at some documents. So that'll give us a chance to squeeze in this quick break. We'll come right back to South Carolina after this.